guys? Welcome back to my channel. So I just finished watching episode 1 of season 2 of Loki. It was pretty darn good. It was pretty darn good. So my reaction will be under my YouTube memberships. If you are new here and you do not know what that is, it is a few special perks for members only. Got 2 levels of memberships over there. Level 1 is for $2.99 and you get priority replies from me, special polls and live streams. Level 2 is for $4.99 and you get everything that level 1 has. Plus you get all of my reactions to all of the shows I watch, any movies I watch, and all of my uncut Try Not to Laughs. So make sure that you become a member so you can see my reactions to this new season. Now, I just finished watching season 1 today. And I loved the way that it ended. So I couldn't wait to watch this first episode. So in the beginning, we see that they are running after Loki. Nobody knows who Loki is. He's someone who is not familiar to them. This dude ends up jumping on some flying vehicle, which hits a glass into a glass of an office, right? And it's an office we've seen before. What's interesting is there's a symbol on the floor, and then a screen falls on the floor and cracks the floor. And so at this point, we see the windows cracked, the floor's cracked. They make it known that there's a symbol on the floor. So then he starts to realize that he was in the past. And he starts warping, like appearing and disappearing. So he's asking the guy who collects everything. I forget his name. He doesn't know who he is at first. He's trying to, I forgot his name. But he doesn't know who he is. But then he warps, comes back, and he's back in the same office. But if you notice, of course, the windows are a different color, but the crack is still on the ground. So he's like, oh, shoot, I was in the past. Which was interesting. So, I mean, like at this point, I'm just like, why is he warping like that? Did something happen when he got kicked? When Sylvie kicked him into through one of those time doors? I'm thinking that he was kind of glitching between time. And that kind of ended up being what it was. He was time slipping, which was, I don't know if that's the same thing or not. But anyway, KC, that's his name. He's warping from KC. So, so then he ends up going back, I guess, in the present time to see KC. And so now he ends up seeing Mobius and B15, I think. Or KC goes to them first, tells them that he saw Loki. So now they're trying to figure out where Loki is. So now he walked back in front of KC. Now, one of the guards is standing where Mobius and the other guard is, and there's another guard that comes in, and I don't know, I kind of don't like the way that he acted. Literally, like his acting, I didn't really like. But he was like, oh, basically they're wanted in the war room, which is, I guess, where the higher ups speak or whatever. Loki ends up in the very same room, but in that room he sees the statues of He Who Remains, which looks like a lot of King the Conqueror's variants. So in the war room in present time, it doesn't look like that. There's a wall in front of where that would have been. So Mobius and B15 are sitting there trying to let them know that they are variants, that they need to change some things. And Loki ends up there. But when he ends up in the room by himself where no one is there, he sees like one of those old radios. And he turns it on, and it's He Who Remains talking. And he is talking to a woman, and he's almost like insinuating like they're getting ready for something, right? So then he ends up going back, and at this point the timeline is branching. So Loki shows up in the meeting, and he ends up grabbing one of those the time things, the pruning sticks or whatever, and he like slams it on the wall and he uncovers what's behind the wall. He's like, this is who this belongs to. This is who did the TVA. So Mobius wants to kind of run off with him and talk to him. So the guard is now sent to go find Sylvie and to find out what happened at the end of time, because now they've been paying attention. So now they're like, all right, wait a minute, now something's not right. So now we gotta find Sylvie, because Sylvie's the one that was left. So so this whole time they were on this quest to free the timeline, but that's kind of what was wanted in order for this war to come upon them. It looks like freeing the timeline was actually doing more harm than good. And they thought that they were doing a good thing. So in the midst of all this, now Mobius is trying to get Loki to get checked out, in a sense. He's trying to take them to this repair place in the TVA. This whole time, he sees him glitching in and out. And it was a funny moment when he was in the elevator and he was like, I don't know, it doesn't look so bad. How does it look? Because Loki doesn't know what he looks like. He was like, well, I don't know. How do you feel? And so when they're in the elevator, it happened again. And Mobius was like, oh my gosh, oh, it looks so bad. He was like, I thought you didn't look so bad. He's like, I don't know. It looks like you're dying or you're being born. And that was hilarious to me. I was cracking up. So they end up going to the RNA and they meet up with Obi. And I'm like, is Obi the dude from Goonies? I don't know. Correct me if I'm wrong. He kind of sounds like him a little bit. But anyway, so he figures out that Loki is time slipping. And now they got to figure out how to get him to not time slip. So they're going back and forth between him talking to OB in the past and in the future. So they're kind of going back and forth, and Obi kind of remembers, but he doesn't, and they're kind of having like this back and forth, which is kind of funny. And so they figure it out, and he's like, well, you need a temporal or an extractor, and he has an extractor. So now they're going to figure out how to deal with trying to get Loki to stop time warping like this, time slipping. So at this point, he sees his light going in and out, and Mobius is like, yeah, we've been having surges all day, and he kind of looked concerned. He was just like, why didn't you tell me? So now they're going off to find it, but before that, they finalize how to get Loki to stop time slipping. And when they told Mobius that he's going to lose his skin, I was like, what? So he's going to lose his skin because he's going to put the extractor in the temporal loom, or whatever it is that they call it, while Loki has to prune himself, I guess, off the timelines, or I don't know how many timelines he's got to prune himself off of. But initially when he does that, he's supposed to come back around and save Mobius. But if he doesn't do it on time, Mobius can burn up in space, basically. So they go off to look at the heart of the timeline, which is this loom. And OB is just like, I've never seen it weaving like this. Like, it's kind of being woven up, which is not a good thing, because if that means that all the variants of He Who Remains is coming, that is not a good thing. So so now they go off, and Loki is kind of like saying his little last goodbye to Mobius, but he ends up time slipping off without this pruning stick. So now he's out here looking for a pruning stick before this timer goes off, because if the timer goes off, then that means that Mobius dies, basically. So Mobius is now in his whole suit. He's pumped. Obi's just like, yeah, whatever. He goes out there and puts this thing in the machine, and he's telling Obi, like, don't press the button, just give him more time. And Obi's just like, look, we don't have time. If he gets lost in the timeline, there's nothing that we can do about it. So he ends up counting down, and now we see Loki. He comes across this ringing phone, And while the phone is ringing, we see that somebody's trying to come through the elevator. And lo and behold, it looks like Sylvie, but not the Sylvie that we saw in season 1. It's like an older Sylvie or a different Sylvie. And somebody comes around and prunes Loki, and we don't know who that is. But he ends up looping back around, saves Mobius, and then you see like all the troops are kind of leaving. And B-15 sees it with Mobius, and they're like, wait a minute, all of this to go find Sylvie? Like, it doesn't make any sense. That's kind of where it ends, but there is an end credit scene. So Sylvie ends up in 1982 somewhere. She ends up walking into an old school McDonald's, and she's kind of looking at everybody laughing and everything, and she's like, how do I do this? And basically she is so far into the past that she's talking in like this. She's like, I don't want any rats, raccoons, or something. She was like, nothing with a face. He's like, okay, you want some chicken nuggets or something? So there's the end credit scene. So I gotta be mindful of that, because there weren't any end credit scenes in season 1, but this is getting really interesting. Like, I'm glad I kind of watched the last episode of season 1 and the first one in the same day, because now things are like seamlessly kind of just flowing. But this was really good. I can't wait to see what happens next week. Leave your comments down below. Let me know if you enjoyed my review. If you enjoyed season 2, episode 1, let me know what you guys think. Give me your thoughts. If you have seen it, come back and let me know. If you haven't seen it, go watch, come back here, let me know. And if you haven't done so, please subscribe to my channel, hit like, share, and don't forget to hit the notification bell so you guys can get notified whenever I pop up on your feed. I'll see you guys later. Toodle!